Hi, welcome to Be Joyful 24/7. So today we are going to look at bareroot roses. What are the advantages and disadvantages of buying bareroot roses, when to buy them, how to plant them, and how to care for them. So why do you need to buy bareroot roses? Why can't you just go to a garden center during summertime and buy a potted rose instead? Well, the main advantage to buying a bareroot rose is the costs are really relatively cheaper compared to buying potted roses. Online garden centers and companies tend to sell them, a lot cheaper than potted roses because they can put them all in packages like cardboard boxes like this, or even just packaging like bags like these. So like my roses have been now delivered, so they've got all these roses in here now, have been delivered to me like this. I have 3 roses in these, so if you think about it, if it was a potted rose, you would need quite a lot quite substantial packaging. Obviously it's going to be quite heavy and bulky, so obviously the shipping costs are going to be a lot more expensive. So I would say that would probably be the first and the biggest advantage of buying bareroot roses instead of potted roses. And also, when you go online, you have a lot of options to choose from, and they are quite competitive in prices. I find that even, for example, David Austin roses and Tanta roses, if you go online, you can buy them a lot cheaper than garden centers, really. So that is the biggest advantage of buying bareroot roses. So another advantage of buying bareroot roses is, so these are like cuttings that I just rooted from, I don't even know what they are. I just plunked them in there last summer, and it's going to be a bit of a surprise when they just flower. So these were cuttings that I took from our garden roses that were already here. So these were, I took cuttings last summer. So it's, obviously we're only in early spring now, so I totally understand. These will still, grow quite substantially this year. But you can understand, if you take cuttings, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take at least 2 years, to get to that size. So yes, you can save money, and you can get cuttings from your friends or whatever, and grow your own roses perfectly fine. But it is going to take a long time for you to get to that stage. And bareroot roses are relatively cheap, and they've already done all the hard work for you. They're quite mature plants when they send them. So I would definitely consider buying them because they are really good value for money, especially if you love roses. So normally what they tend to do is they wrap them in plastic papers like this to keep the moisture inside. I would advise you not to open the package until the day you are ready to plant. Now, these roses now were delivered to me during weekdays. I work full time, and I know I will not be able to plant them. So I left them pretty much. Left them in the box, left them in a cold place. Don't put it in a really hot place. Just somewhere cold in the house. It'll be quite happy inside the house. You don't have to go and take them into a garage or something. If you have a garage, perfect. Otherwise, just leave them in the house somewhere, a little bit cooler. Don't open them, especially out of these plastic containers, plastic wrappers. Just leave them be and open them only when you are ready to plant them. So, yeah, I have opened now because I'm ready to plant today. I have opened my packaging, and this is how they look. There are 3 plants actually in this one, and these are my latest addition to my David Austin roses. I'm super thrilled and super excited. My husband's not probably happy because of the amount of roses that I buy. But yes, so these are going to be my 3 newest additions of my David Austin roses. So I have Desdemona, and what else did I buy? This one is Queen of Sweden, and I also have Silas Marner. So yeah, I have 3 new David Austin roses to my collection, and this is how they look. And I do have a big bucket of water here. I think that's just a bucket of water. And I'm going to put them in here and I'm going to let them soak for about 2 hours. So for the next part, we've obviously come outside to the patio because I possibly cannot do this inside the house. So as I said before, so we've got our bare root rose, and I'm going to show you how to pot them. I'm not putting them in the ground. It's because I do not have room. I'm growing over 50 roses already. I think all these would count up to like 60. By the way, if you are interested in knowing all the varieties of roses I'm growing, please post a comment below and I will do another video of all the roses that I've got, the colors and the breeders and all the other information. So yeah, so we've come outside. And the most important thing you need to understand is roses are very hungry plants. So the pots that you choose has to be at least about 40 centimeters in diameter. So these are okay, but I would actually say even these, ideally I would like to plant them in a container like these ones. As you can see, compared to the size. But I do only have one of these. I'm going to plant one of the climbing roses that I bought in the big one, and the rest of them are going to go into this one. They will be fine in these pots for a couple of years, and then I'd probably have to rethink about either moving them onto the ground or moving them to a bigger pot. So yeah, remember the pot size very carefully for your roses. Like any plants, the most important thing is drainage holes. Now this one came with plenty of drainage holes, which is very unusual for plastic pots, because normally when you buy plastic pots, they don't come with drainage holes, but this one has quite a lot of them, and they're quite big holes as well, so I was very pleased about that. By the way, if you're interested, we picked this up, I think, was it in Wilko? I think we picked it up in Wilko. It was good value for money. So yeah, so it has plenty of drainage holes already, so I'm not going to bother drilling any holes. Otherwise you will have to definitely drill some holes. So I have already filled half of my pot with some compost. So it's just peat-free compost that I got from garden centre. I have added some perlite to it for drainage. Now, when people are generally potting roses, you would see that some people would put some broken clay pieces, or you would have seen people putting styrofoam pieces at the bottom for drainage. Now, as long as your pots are okay and you have plenty of drainage holes, and if it's a free draining sort of like soil or compost, I find you don't really need to do that. All my roses that I've got over 50 roses. So yeah, I've just put them all in just pots without any, broken clay pieces or anything at the bottom, and they've been fine for me. So I wouldn't bother too much, as long as your compost is good, free draining. And if they don't look really quite fine like this one's really good actually. The structure of it's quite loose. Sometimes you can get compost. Like this morning we were just mulching our bed, and I found that particular compost was very thick, and it just almost felt like glue in some places. So but even then I would recommend that if you have perlite, add some perlite as well, because it's going to increase in drainage anyway. So yeah, I've filled half of my pot with this compost and perlite mixture. So I'm just going to get my bare root rose and I'm going to make sure it's in the center. And by the way, you don't have to add any fertilizer or anything at this point. I would recommend you don't do that, because sometimes fertilizers, when you add chemicals, when the plant is just starting to establish, it might actually do more harm than good. So I don't recommend adding any fertilizer or any kind at this stage. Wait until the plant is established and it's starting to grow a little bit. You can always add some fertilizer in the growing season in summer. So when you're just planting your bare root roses, just good compost would be fine. The only thing you could think about adding is mycorrhizal fungi powder. Mycorrhizal fungi is it's a powder that aids in root growth. So just like your root hormone, really, like the rooting powder that you can get. It's similar to that. So if you can get hold of that, then you would sprinkle a little bit on these roots, and then you would just plant them on. I don't have mycorrhizal fungi powder, so I'm not going to bother. And to be perfectly honest, I have planted bare root roses in the past without that. They've been absolutely fine, so I'm not going to bother because my compost seems to be fine. So I'm just going to place it in the center, and then I'm going to backfill. Now, when you are putting your rose, make sure actually this is a little bit too much, so I'm just going to take a tiny bit off. The idea is when you place your bare root rose, it needs to be in such a way that, that tip bit here, it needs to be a couple of inches below the rim of the pot. That's what you're aiming for. So it has to be a couple of inches below. So when you backfill it and you make sure, and you backfill it properly and you smooth it all down, you should have a couple of inches at the top where, you can water. So that's what you're aiming for. So I'm now happy with how it looks. I've just measured it. There are a couple of inches there. So I'm going to now start to backfill with my compost and perlite mixture that I've already got in this bigger tub. So yeah, I've backfilled completely. I pressed it gently so there are no air pockets, and if there were air pockets, I made sure that I went back in and just filled it with a bit more compost. And I'm going to now water this well and just leave it outside. It is in dormant season now, but it should be absolutely fine outside now, ready to grow. So I've now watered well. Just make sure that you stop in between watering and making sure the water's absorbed well and it goes all the way down to the roots. And we're just going to leave this now, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it will produce some new shoots, and I will update you. I will show you a follow-up video as to how they are doing in a couple of months' time. Hopefully you'll have some beautiful rose bush. What I'm going to do is the follow-up care and how I'm taking care of my roses. I'm planning to do another video because, like I've said, I have an obsession for roses and I've got loads of roses growing. So I'll probably do a dedicated video of how to care for roses and what sort of fertilizers that I use, and how, what sort of pests you generally have to look out for when you are growing roses. I'll try and do a video probably in early summer or late summer. So thank you so much for watching.